3 different photographs of moorland autumn colours, with low hazy sunshine, golden browns and backlit leaves clinging to life. But do the photographs capture the autumnal feeling I'm after?
Well, good morning everybody. I'm walking up to a little local sort of woodland today, just a few minutes from where I live, so nice and easy sort of photography in many ways. But I've come up because I'm hoping to get some autumn colour, although I don't know what it's like where you are in the country. Certainly down here in the southwest of England, it's kind of been a bit of a non-event really. I'm sort of looking around me at the moment and there's trees with still green leaves on them, and yet they're also looking slightly barren. So there hasn't been a great swathe of colour or anything to work with. Now there are some colours in some of the bracken that's on the ground, and it still hasn't gone completely over. So I'm hoping that I can use that and maybe find some compositions amongst some of the trees with some of those colours in there as well. But until I get up to the top, we're not going to really know what it's going to be. Not going to know what we're going to find, and that really is the challenge of photography, isn't it? Not photography itself. The challenge is the landscape and working with whatever the lighting conditions and the seasons give us to work with. So let's crack on and see what we can find at the top. And I'll be back with you in a minute. So I think I've found my first composition of the day, kind of what I've been looking for. So there's this tree. I'm not very good with tree names. I think it's something like some kind of mountain ash or rowan tree or something. It's lost its berries, but it's stood apart a little bit on its own, and its beautiful sort of white bark, it does stand out nicely in the landscape and makes a nice sort of contrast with the red bracken and that around it. So I've just been walking around the tree trying to find the best composition and work out where I can get enough separation from it from the other elements around it. For this to work, it does need to be a very simple composition involving just the tree really, and nothing interfering with it. Now it's very difficult because there's a lot of other trees, bushes and low-lying sort of like scrub all the way around it. So I've just got to go and try and finalise what that composition is going to be. Well, I found my composition. You can probably just about see it beyond my sort of the shoulder. It's funny really, when I walked around originally, I didn't think I would be taking the picture from this side, but it really does work out to be the best location. See, the problem with the other side of the tree is that there's got some greenery and things in it, and it just looks a little bit too distracting. So although this side of the tree does kind of merge with some of the other trees in the background as well, I can kind of live with it. Now I'm shooting at f4, which is the widest aperture that I've got on my lens, and hopefully that's going to introduce enough sort of separation and blur into the trees behind so that we can work with what we've got. Now you'll see that I've put the camera on the vertical format because obviously the main subject is a vertical format. It's a tree, and I really do want it to be very simple in just this tree in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is when I eventually sort of put it up in the computer at the end, is I'll crop it to a 5:4, and that just gives it a little bit more strength rather than having a narrow sort of like 3:2 format that it is at the moment. So we can do that in post-processing. The actual setup itself is really, really simple. I'm just trying to get as much of the bracken in the foreground in as possible, so I'm leaving the space at the top of the frame to crop off later on. And it's got some actually got some quite nice side lighting on the tree as well, so I think that's going to help with that separation. So let's take this photograph and then we can see if we can find something else. But there's some really nice light starting to come through now, and I'm hoping that there's more sort of subjects like this to be had. So that's that nicely framed up. I've put my 2-second timer on. We're currently at f4 ISO 100, 200th of a second, 2-second timer. In fact, to be honest, we probably don't need the 2-second timer on for this sort of photography because the camera's, you know, the shutter speed, I could really take this handheld, but I'm a pretty traditional photographer and I still like to use the tripod setup. As always, I'm going to bracket a couple stops either side just in case I want to play with those exposures later on, and that will really give me something else to work with. So by bracketing, I'm not changing the aperture, I just want to change the shutter speed itself. Just notice that my battery's getting flat. And I'm bracketing really using the histogram. And if you want to see how to do that, then you want to watch my exposure series. There is something on there about using histograms to get exposure correct. Okay, so whilst I put a fresh camera battery in, I'm going to put up this image for you and you guys can have a look at it, and I'll join you hopefully at the next image.
I had high expectations for this photograph. Having said that, I knew when I took it that creating separation from the trees behind would make or break the image. And for me, in this case, it's a break. I debated about dropping the photograph completely and not sharing it. But that's not what this channel is about. I'm happy to show my failures. That's all part of the process of being a landscape photographer.
If you've ever been to any of my landscape photography lectures that I do for camera clubs, you will have heard me talking many times about my view that photography, although being definitely an art form, is also a form of communication, as I think all forms of art are, in that you're trying to tell a story or get over to an audience your views on a particular subject. With my landscape photography, the story is about the landscape itself and what I want to share with other people and what I want to tell you about it. So quite often when I go out looking for photographs, I'm looking for several things. I'm looking for details, I'm looking for some close-up information. I'm also looking for the wider landscape and trying to put some of those elements in the context of the landscape that they're around. And that's what I've been looking for the last few minutes. And I think I've found what it is I've been looking for. And I've just come up with this idea where if I could get some ferns or something or bracken in the foreground against the wider sort of landscape and the distant hills up on the higher moorland, then it would look really quite well. Now, what I've managed to find, as you can see behind me, it's really quite blown out really, and a bit difficult to see, but I have got some bracken behind me, and I've put my long lens on, so I'm shooting at, let's have a look, I'm shooting at about 200mm or so. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to focus in on a piece of bracken which hasn't quite gone over. It's still got some green, some yellow and some colours in it, and it's lit from the side. In fact, it's slightly backlit actually, and it's looking really great against the red sort of browny bracken. And then behind that I've got some trees, and then we've got the moorland, and then we've got the sky. So we've got these layers of information going back through the picture. Now I could shoot it at wide angle, which would be probably easier to get everything in, but if I shot it at wide angle, then what you would find is that the various elements in the picture which have any importance to me would become very subdued and unimportant. And the reason that I've put the long lens on is because it compresses perspective. It brings those elements closer and into the frame and draws it all in together and creates a more harmonious photograph describing what this landscape looks like. Now there are a few challenges. With this position that I've decided to shoot in. I'm basically shooting really towards the sun. So you'll see that I've put the lens cap on, lens hood on to try and shield some of that light, and it seems to be working relatively well. So I'm going to take the picture. I'm also going to bracket because the light is very, very difficult. On the horizon, it's definitely sort of blown out. So the only way to get everything in is to try and make sure everything is in there. Now I'm shooting at f11 and I'm focusing on the bracken, and I think the background is going to go quite soft because of the focal length that I'm choosing to use. I'm not actually too worried about that. What's important is that this piece of bracken's really pin sharp and not moving about too much. Now I'm shooting at ISO 100. I've got about a 30th of a second. So in a minute I'm going to zoom in on the detail of that leaf and just make sure that it is pin sharp, because if it isn't, I'll up my ISO and take some more pictures. Okay, so that's the last picture taken of those anyway. I'll put the final picture up on the screen for you and put the settings up in a minute, because I've taken them at f11, f16, ISO 100, ISO 400, and I've varied the shutter speed to get the correct exposure. So exactly how I'm going to put that together, I'm not quite sure. It might even be an image which I focus on at the end of the month when I do my sort of like image review with you guys, but we'll just see how that works out.
I'm pleased with this photograph. It captures the moment, the warm, hazy, low autumn sun, the colours and soft feeling that the light was creating. When I came out this morning, I was looking for a particular location. I had it in mind because I'd seen it earlier in the summer when all this bracken was grown up and it was green and all around it, and it really didn't have a lot of character to it. But I thought it would be absolutely fantastic at this time of the year, and I made some notes on it and was hoping to come back and find it. And luckily I have. Now what I've got is this dead tree which has fallen down on the ground, and surrounding around it there's a lot of bracken and different things around. And I've composed the picture in a vertical 5:4 format and taken in one of the trees in the background as well. Now the exposure is particularly difficult. You can probably see that behind me it's really bright, and I can't get the exposure right for my face, so you can see me talking, and for the background at the same time. And the reason for that is I'm practically shooting straight into the sun, which is also, not only is this a challenge, it's also one of the things which makes this photograph so interesting, because I've got a lot of the ferns and a lot of the grasses backlit, and also there's some lovely side lighting falling down and illuminating the dead tree stump which is now right in front of me. Sometimes in photography it's the challenges that we have with either finding something decent in the landscape or the lighting itself that creates the best photography. In this case it's certainly that texture and the lighting and these strong elements which are challenges, but they're the ones which are going to bring the best out in the photo. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense, so I'm going to crack on and set the image up and take it and show you what I've done. So I was hoping to actually be able to show you the back of the camera screen and explain to you exactly what I'm doing, but the fact of the matter is that it's so difficult to compose using live view when you're looking directly into the sun that I've had to use the viewfinder, so I can't really show you what it is I'm doing. But I'm going to put some video up on the screen for you that I've shot through the 5D, so you can see exactly what my composition sort of looks like and what I'm looking at through the viewfinder. Now what I've done is I've included in the bottom of the frame this dead tree branch, sort of taking you in from the bottom of the picture right through, almost 50% of the way through the picture. And we've got those ferns backlit by the beautiful sun coming up above, and in the background there's a silhouette of a barren tree against a very overexposed sky. I might actually leave it that way and just leave that sky almost completely blown out.
I might darken it down a little bit, but there is really no cloud in it, there's no blue sky, it's very hazy, and I think it is what it is, but we'll have to see what I can do with it in post-processing. Now I've composed it as a 5/4 crop. It may even be in the final image, if I can't resolve the sky, that I take the sky off completely and actually have it as a square and just concentrate on this tree in the foreground. But I'll put that final picture up for you now with the settings, and you can make your own mind up on whether my composition choice was correct or not in the end.
This photograph is okay, but there are some elements that still need resolving. I find the bright sky distracting. I knew it when I took the image. But a square crop loses the feeling of depth. Hopefully the dead tree will be around for some time and I can go back and photograph it again under different lighting conditions.
Well, you've got an advantage over me because I have absolutely no idea how today's photographs have turned out yet until I get back and process the images on the computer. So I can only hope that they've come out and they've worked really well. I've thoroughly enjoyed this morning's photography. I think I've come out and seen what I wanted to see, and I've achieved the photographs that I wanted to achieve when I originally came out this morning, which is really, really good. Now, just because you go out and take photographs and you get the images you want doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be successful, because it's not always our ideas or preconceived sort of thoughts that we have about photography come out to be fantastic images at the end of the day. But anyway, nevertheless, I have had a great time taking some wonderful images. Ruby's had a bit of a walk and a play about as well, so that's all been good stuff. And it's time for me to get back home, process these images, process this video, and get it all up on the screen for you, so you can hopefully enjoy it as I have. So until next time, get up there, enjoy your photography. If you enjoyed what you saw today on the channel, there's plenty more content like it, so please think about giving it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so yet, then please subscribe as well. I'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel a lot. If you're a new viewer, consider subscribing and don't forget the bell icon. That's all for now. Get out and enjoy your photography.